Hello, everyone. My name is Anisa Amani, but in my third grade classroom, I am best known as Miss Amani. I grew up in Northern California, about an hour away from where we are here, in a predominantly white suburban area called Folsom. Folsom had never experienced a family like mine. An Afghan family with a backyard full of pomegranate and cherry trees, instead of a pool to escape the summer heat. I would have liked the pool. As a result, I started public school and I quickly realized learning was incredibly challenging for me. I was a dual language learner, which meant that I was learning English and Farsi at the same time. Each year, I was the only student in my class that spoke another language. And because of this, my teachers did not know how to properly support my academic needs. I suffered year after year and was at risk of retention, but somehow made it onto the next grade level and continued to suffer and struggle there. Even with these challenges, I was always encouraged by my dad, Baba, shout out to him, it's Father's Day, to never give up. He intentionally spoke greatness into me by telling me, "You are a smart cookie. Try your best. That's all that matters." With his support, I continued on to my educational journey. And in college, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, a learning disability. After years of questioning my abilities, I finally had the answer I was looking for. I was academically different, and that's okay. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but think how much more successful I would have been if a teacher in my classroom would have advocated for me to receive the proper supports I needed to be successful. The public school system had failed me, the same way that it fails countless children. I chose this diagnosis to fuel my fire, to learn more about educational advocacy. I chose to attend graduate school here at UC Davis, where I earned a teaching credential and master's in education. I quite literally became the change I wanted to see in the world. Now I teach in the Art and Arcade area of Sacramento, which is home to the largest population of special immigrant visa recipients from Afghanistan. Well, yeah, they're Afghan, I just said that. Anyway, my elementary school has a population of nearly 800 students. Of those 800 students, 100% of our students are living at or below the poverty line. And 74% of our students are Afghan refugees. Yeah. That population is continuing to grow, but every classroom is Afghan dominated. I never thought that I would be speaking Farsi all day, every day, especially with my California Valley Girl accent, which confuses many of the Afghan parents and leads them to ask me questions like, "So, what part of Afghanistan are you from? Are you really Afghan? And when did you come to America?" I confuse the Afghan parents just as much as I confuse the Americans. Many times, teachers and staff members ask me to help facilitate communication between them and the Afghan families. They hear us go back and forth in Farsi, and they notice I'm not always called Miss Amani. They look at me and curiously ask, "Why do they call you Ustad?" I proudly tell them that Ustad means teacher in Farsi. My journey as Ustad began on August 10th, 2017, where I was faced with a challenge I wasn't expecting. I walked into my classroom excited and proud. My dream job was now finally a reality. I stood on the blacktop wearing my favorite floral teacher dress, perfect for the first day of school, holding a sign that read Miss Amani, 3rd grade, so my new students would know where to line up. After seeing more and more children lining up, I grew happier and more confident to begin the day. We went into the classroom together, went over introductions and classroom expectations, and now we were ready for some math review. The students took out their whiteboards, and we began to practice. My back was turned, and I was writing a new double-digit addition problem on the whiteboard, when suddenly a student, let's call him Michael, stood up, walked to the door, kicked it open, and yelled, "I hate the Farsi kids." I was surprised by his word choice and his behavior, but I knew I had to do whatever I could to support Michael and try to understand where he was coming from. This moment brought me back to when I was in the 6th grade. I was the only Afghan in my class and was selected every day by my classmates to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. This meant that I would stand in front of everyone and under the flag and direct my classmates by saying, "Please stand, salute, pledge." This might not seem like a big deal, but in a post-9/11 world, this meant so much more. Many of my peers blamed me and my Afghan Muslim community for the 9/11 attacks. My classmates selected me to lead the Pledge of Allegiance every day, which is 180 school days, as a way for me to prove that I was not a terrorist and that my family had no ties to Al-Qaeda or the Taliban. They would watch me and laugh as I carefully recited the Pledge of Allegiance with my right hand shaking over my heart. This was an isolating, painful, and absolutely humiliating experience. I needed support from my 6th grade teacher and often wondered, which I still wonder, why didn't he stop this behavior? Why didn't he care about me and my feelings? That experience has taught me that my reaction as a teacher will have a lasting impact on all of my students. I knew I needed to come from a place of grace and understanding rather than anger and judgment. I followed Michael outside, put my arm around him, and asked why he was so upset. He turned to me with tears in his eyes, saying that he hates hearing them talk because he doesn't know what they are saying. After hearing his explanation, I knew my role was to build bridges between my students and help them understand one another, because no one understood me in the 6th grade. I later learned through a parent-teacher conference with Michael's mother that racial tensions were high within our Sacramento community and not just in the classroom. This stemmed from inequitable housing. The Afghan special immigrant visa holders were given special privileges that removed the existing Sacramento community out of their homes. This happened as a result of the apartment complex owners receiving government subsidies to house Afghans, resulting in the removal of non-Afghan families, making Michael's actions more clear and understandable. A couple months later, students chose a classmate to write a compliment to. One of my Afghan students, who is new to English, selected Michael. She asked several students around her in Farsi, "Chطور نشتاق کنم که Michael متوجه درس است." This made him extremely uncomfortable and upset. All she said was, "How do I write that Michael is really focused and a great listener?" But he heard them speaking about him, and he explained that hearing his name mixed with the language that he doesn't know made him feel uncomfortable and that he assumed that something hurtful was being said. This was a pivotal moment in our class, and I explained to students that because of the many languages spoken, students would not always understand each other. However, we must work together to create an inclusive environment for everyone. After several months of cultural competency training with my students, I had seen the growth. But I knew things stuck when Michael showed support for his Afghan classmates. He overheard the PE teacher mocking the Afghan students and their accents. He was absolutely disgusted by this, and so he decided to write a letter to the principal so she was aware of his behavior. Michael taught me how to build bridges for my students and help them create a more inclusive environment. For the last 5 years, I've been working as an educator and community advocate for Afghan refugees in the Sacramento area. I have found new and unique ways to support and uplift our people. Although I never saw myself in this role, I am grateful for the opportunity and I am continuing to learn. There is a lot of work that still needs to be done. For far too long, marginalized communities have been left to fight amongst each other for crumbs, when what we really need to do is work together to create a plan out of our oppression. When I learned I could teach in a school with Afghan refugees, I took the opportunity because I wanted to help my own people. I was inspired by the words of legendary John Lewis when he stated, "If not us, then who? If not now, then when?" His leadership within the Black community encouraged me to support Afghans, like building relationships between Afghan and non-Afghan students in a humanizing and respectful way, or coaching parents on how to advocate for their children when learning challenges appear to be limiting their academic growth. I love being Afghan and supporting Afghans. We're all here at the Afghan-American Conference because we have a desire to connect with our people, which I'm sure isn't always easy for us. In my experience, Afghans are the people I am closest to, and also the people I can feel the furthest from. We have the potential to trigger our trauma and PTSD when around each other, but also the potential to be each other's biggest advocates. My message here today is not to tell you how easy and wonderful it is to work with Afghans. The Afghan families at my school often ask me incredibly uncomfortable questions, like, do you pray? Why aren't you covered? Are you comfortable with going to hell? And my favorite, are you interested in marrying my brother? No, I'm not. I am here to tell you that it is painful and challenging work, and probably the hardest thing you'll ever do emotionally, but it is worth it. The same Afghan families at my school have also invited me over for chai, brought me bologna for lunch. They tell me that they keep me in their du'as when they make prayer, and that there's a special place in heaven for me. As Afghans, our roots go deep. We have inherited resilience and a warrior spirit, but also pain. Let's ease our pain by uplifting one another. There is no one who understands Afghans like Afghans, especially with the August 2021 Taliban takeover. We must do whatever we can to connect with the Afghan new arrivals because they need it. There are so many ways to give back. Grab a group of friends and volunteer at a food bank or at your local refugee resettlement agencies. Some ways that you can connect is also by reaching out to your school districts where Afghan new arrivals might be enrolled. And organizations like Opening Doors and World Relief provide volunteer opportunities because they need people like us. I encourage you all to look within yourselves, find whatever special talents you have professionally and personally, and use that to your advantage to connect with the new generation of Afghans. Being a teacher challenges me each and every day, but being a teacher to newly arrived Afghans gives me a sense of purpose because I am supporting my community through my passion. I used to think that being in the classroom was one of the most traumatizing and terrifying places to be. Now, as a teacher, I try to make it one of the best places for my students, regardless of their academic, social, or racial differences. And because of this, I realized following my dreams is not the inspiration that led me to education. Following my greatest source of pain and suffering is the inspiration that led me to education, and ultimately what led to my favorite title yet, Ustad. Thank you.